There are 25 granite containers weighing 100 tons each under the sands of Egypt. No engineer in the world can explain how they were made. In India, there is an iron column that has not rusted for 16 centuries, although modern steel is given up over the years. In Iraq, they found a battery assembled in 2,000 years before Walta introduced its own. These objects do not fit into textbooks because the textbooks were written by people who did not see them. Today we will analyze 7 real ancient finds, each of which looks as if it was forgotten by travelers from the future. And let's start with the most difficult riddle in the literal sense of the word. All 7 items can be touched by hand. Each is stored in a real museum, and each breaks the usual picture of the past. Egypt, Saqqara, 1850 ad. French archaeologist Auguste Mariette noticed a stone sphinx protruding from the sand to the northwest from the Pyramid of Djoser. Having excavated a whole alley of such sphinxes, he realized that they lead to the entrance to an underground structure. When his team broke in, they had to use dynamite because the passages were sealed tightly. Behind the stone walls, a labyrinth of long tunnels, cut out directly in the limestone, opened. In the largest gallery on both sides of the corridor, there were 25 giant boxes of black and pink granite. Each box is 4 meters long, 2.5 wide, 3 1/3 high. The lid weighs 30 tons separately, and the total mass of the container is approaching 100 tons. This is the weight of a fully loaded railway car, hidden in a tight underground niche. When Mariette opened one of the boxes with an explosive, there was nothing inside except emptiness and smooth walls. Official science calls this place Serapeum and claims that the sacred bulls of Apis were buried here. The problem is that in no open box were found any remains of bulls or traces of mummification. But they found something more terrible than mummies: the inhuman accuracy of stone processing. Engineer Christopher Dunn, who worked for 49 years in high-tech production, measured the inner surfaces of 2 boxes. He used an industrial caliber with a tolerance of 0.02 inches. The walls were flat to the level that can only be reached on software-controlled machines. The angles are kept exactly at 90 degrees, and the radius in the corners is only 4 millimeters. When Dunn asked the American company to repeat such a box of a whole piece of granite, they answered him directly. Even with an unlimited budget, it would have to be assembled from 6 separate plates. And the ancient craftsmen cut out each container from a single monolith mined in Aswan, 800 kilometers from Saqqara. The rock of most of the boxes has a hardness of 6.5 on the scale of Mohs, and some are made of diorite, which is even harder. The tunnels are so narrow that 2 people can barely fit in them, as if 100-ton blocks were spread out on the straight corners of the corridors and lowered into niches with a gap of 40 centimeters. Science is silent. There is simply nowhere to place the levers or a brigade of workers, and the ancient Egyptians officially did not have hydraulics. One unfinished box is still standing in the middle of the tunnel, as if the builders threw it halfway and left forever. Roughly scratched hieroglyphs on the outer walls contrast sharply with the mirror polish inside, as if inscriptions were made by completely different people thousands of years after the creation of the containers themselves. If you now feel that ordinary channels tell the story too flat, subscribe. Here we dig where the textbooks end. What do you think? Why do you need surgical accuracy for a bull's coffin? Write your opinion in the comments. Let's move from the underground galleries of Egypt to the seabed of the Mediterranean Sea. In 1901, Greek divers got caught in a storm off the island of Antikythera. The captain sent a diver to the bottom so as not to waste time. And he dived in panic. He was shouting about dead bodies at a depth of 60 meters. The captain went down himself and saw not the cemetery, but the remains of an ancient Roman ship that sank around 85 BC. The dead bodies turned out to be marble statues lying in the sand for 2 millennia. An inconspicuous piece of greenish bronze. For 2 years it was dusting in the drawers of the National Museum in Athens, until the politician Spiridon Stais noticed a crack. Inside, a small, perfectly cut gear sparkled. The object was more than 2,000 years old. Newspapers wrote about the sensation. Skeptics shouted about the fake. But the X-ray tomograph of the 2000s put everything in place. Inside, a system of 37 bronze gears was hidden, the largest diameter of 13 centimeters, with 223 teeth. A device the size of a laptop calculated the position of the sun, the moon, and the 5 planets. It predicted solar and lunar eclipses, tracked the cycles of the Olympic Games, and showed the phases of the moon. The accuracy of calculations of European science was achieved only after 1,500 years. The mechanism considered that the moon accelerated and slowed down at different parts of the elliptical orbit. To do this, there were 2 gears inside, mounted with a displaced axis, actually a differential. The very node that allows the wheels of your car to spin at different speeds at a turn. The teeth of each wheel are accurately cut, inaccessible to a manual file. Triangular teeth are the same as stamped. The inscriptions on the rear panel, recently read thanks to tomography, turned out to be detailed instructions for operation. The lost arrows of the front panel carried colored balls, fiery red for Mars, gold for the sun. Researchers from the University College of London called the original a creation of genius, combining Babylonian astronomy and the mathematics of the Academy of Plato. Whoever assembled this device, he understood the space at the level to which the rest of humanity had reached 20 centuries ago. The Roman orator Cicero, in the 1st century BC, described a similar device, created by Archimedes in Syracuse. So the Antikythera Mechanism was not the only one. It belonged to a whole tradition, from which only one copy came to us. The Greeks packed the sky in a bronze box, and the Indian blacksmiths cut the iron in about the same era. In the courtyard of the Kuvatul Islam Mosque, there is a column 7 meters 20 centimeters high and weighing more than 6 tons. The inscription in Sanskrit connects it with King Chandragupta II of the Gupta dynasty, the 4th century of our era. For 16 centuries, the column stood under the open sky, under the foggy rain and scorching heat, and there is almost no rust on it. Ordinary iron in the Delian climate is covered with bark for several years, and the Eiffel Tower is repainted every 7 years. In the 18th century, a cannonball hit the column, but it withstood, leaving only a dent at a height of 4 meters. The riddle was tried to solve since 1912, when British chemists first took samples. The answer appeared in 1991, when Professor Balakrishnamon published a study from the Institute of Technology in Kanpur. His team used X-ray diffraction, electrochemical tests, and microscopy to finally understand what is happening on the surface of the metal. The iron of the column contains about 1% phosphorus, while there is almost no sulfur and magnesium in it. Such a compound starts the formation of a layer of crystalline iron phosphate with a thickness of 0.1 m. This layer works as an invisible shield that heals cracks itself during each cycle of soaking and drying. In fact, the ancient blacksmiths created a natural analog of stainless steel 15 centuries before the invention of stainless steel. They used blacksmith welding, heating and forging the iron in order to preserve phosphorus without devices and without textbooks. Modern metallurgy has still not reproduced the exact combination of the composition and strength of this column. 6 tons of iron without a single gram of paint stand under the open sky and win the battle that our entire industry is losing. And from which country? Write in the comments. It is interesting to know where they are watching us from. The Indians conquered iron, and the Romans in the 4th century conquered light. In the British Museum, behind the armored glass, there is a Lycurgus cup, the only whole sample of dichroic glass of antiquity. If the light falls from the front, the cup is green as nephrite, and if it passes through the wall from behind, it flashes ruby red. A scene from a myth is carved on the surface. The king of Lycurgus is entangled in grapevines, and the god Dionysus watches his death. The carving is made in the technique of a cell cube, when the glass is cast with a thick block and then cut to the openwork lattice. But the focus with the change of color is not hidden in the carving, but in the very structure of the glass. The solution came in the 90s, when fragments of a similar Roman glass were examined under an electron microscope. Particles of gold and silver alloy about 50 nanometers in size, 1,000 times smaller than a grain of salt. When light touches these inclusions, metal electrons begin to oscillate and change the wavelength. Silver is responsible for the green color in the reflection, and gold is responsible for the red color in the light. This effect is called plasmon resonance, and today it is used in sensors and holographic technologies. Roman masters ground gold and silver to invisible particles and melted them into glass in a 7:3 ratio. Scientists from Cambridge were able to reproduce such an effect, creating masses of 16 million nanoparticles per millimeter. The Romans achieved the same 16 centuries ago, without microscopes, without lasers, without optics textbooks. The secret of production died with the empire, and the Lycurgan cube remained the only complete witness. Today, researchers are trying to use this ancient principle to create super-sensitive water pollution detectors. The technology born for the feast table can save millions of lives 17 centuries after its invention. The Romans controlled light, and their contemporaries in the East probably controlled electricity. In 1936, during the construction of the railway near Baghdad, the workers discovered an ancient burial. It was located near the ruins of Ctesiphon, the capital of the Parthian kingdom. Among the finds was a clay jug, 14 centimeters high, with a copper cylinder inside. An iron rod hung in the center of the cylinder, not touching the walls, and the neck was sealed with a concrete plug. Wilhelm Nigg, director of the National Museum of Iraq, immediately recognized the design of the galvanic element. 2 metals with different electrochemical potentials, separated by space for liquid electrolyte. Corrosion marks on the walls indicated the presence of acid, most likely vinegar or grape juice. American scientist Willard Gray collected an exact copy and poured grape juice into it, and the device really gave electric current. Such a device is capable of generating about 1 volt, and several connected jugs would give current for gold plating. Similar vessels were found in a neighboring village, and bronze and iron needles. The Roman doctor Scribonius Larcus in the 1st century described the treatment of hypoglycemia with electric scat attached to the feet of the patient. The idea of using electricity in medicine was known to the ancient world long before science gave it a name. The Baghdad Battery precedes the official invention of volts by at least 16 centuries. In 2003, it was stolen from the museum during an invasion to Iraq, and its fate is unknown. We may have lost the oldest electrical device in history, and we can't even do a modern analysis. Let's go back to Egypt, but this time to an object that fits on a dinner table and looks like a part of a machine shop. In the same year, 1936, archaeologist Walter Emery uncovered the tomb of a Sabu official in the necropolis of Ankara. Next to the skeleton was a broken stone disc with a diameter of 61 cm. It was cut out of metasiltite, a fragile rock that crumbles with the slightest hit. 3 curved blades converge to the central sleeve, and the disc on top is indistinguishable from the impeller of an industrial pump. The age of the tomb is about 5,000 years, the first dynasty when tools were made of stone and soft copper. Like a rock that crumbles from an awkward touch, the thin blades were cut out of metastatite, and the disc was cut out of metastatite. The disc was cut out of metastatite, and the disc was cut out of metastatite. The disc was cut of metastatite, and the disc was cut of metastatite. The disc was cut of metastatite, and the disc out of metastatite. The disc was cut out of metastatite, and the disc of metastatite. And the disc more than 8,000 full-sized warriors made of scorched clay. Each human-sized figure has a unique face, although only 8 basic forms were used for the heads. They guarded the tomb of the first emperor of the United China, Qin Shi Huang, who mobilized 700,000 workers to build it. Still less than 1% of the complex is excavated, but the sensation was not in the statues, but in their weapons. More than 40,000 bronze arrowheads, swords up to 95 centimeters long, spears and crossbow mechanisms were extracted from the pits. After 2,200 years, the blades sparkled under the ground as if they had been forged yesterday, and the blades remained sharp. For 40 years, scientists believed that the secret was in the chrome coating, because traces of chrome were found on the bronze. The chrome coating was patented in Europe only in the 20th century, and the discovery seemed incredible. A joint study by the University College of London and the Terracotta Army Museum in 2019 overturned the theory. The chrome on the swords was contaminated with varnish, which was covered with wooden handles and bamboo logs. It had nothing to do with the safety of the bronze itself. The real secret lay in the composition of the bronze, with a high content of tin, and in the properties of local soil. The bristle forest of Shan with small particles and a low content of organics created an ideal environment for the conservation of metal. The bronze replicas buried in the local soil remained untouched after 4 months of extreme tests. The same samples in the British soil were covered with thick corrosion during the same period. The masters of the Qin dynasty 22 centuries ago picked up the alloy and the environment, which worked as an ideal preservative. They did not know the words electrochemistry or crack corrosion, but the result of their work survived all the empires that came after them. 40,000 blades lay in the dark and waited for their time, as an order that no one canceled. What surprised you the most from what was heard today? Write in the comments. We passed through the underground labyrinths of Egypt and descended to the bottom of the Mediterranean Sea. We stood at the Iron Pilar in Delhi and looked inside the Roman cup where nanoparticles dance. We held a 2,000-year-old battery in our hands and spun a 5,000-year-old stone turbine. Each of these finds is documented and stored in a museum that can be visited tomorrow. There is no need to believe them. Just buy a plane ticket. Go inside and see with your own eyes. Not a single one requires aliens to explain, but each requires to admit an inconvenient fact. Our ancestors possessed the knowledge that we reopen after a millennium. We call it breakthroughs, and they may have called it an ordinary craft. Progress may not be a straight line up, but a spiral where each turn begins with the same ignorance. The real mystery is not how they did it, but why we forgot it.